Hi, so in this video, I'm going to be going over the Azure Resource Graph Explorer. Now, when you're working within Azure, there's going to be times when you're going to need to query information that, could be maybe like I need all the subnets in a particular subscription. I need all the VMs and any network security groups that are attached to them. There could be times where you need, want to do auditing against your firewalls, seeing what type of rules there are, things like that. So there's all these accumulation of resources and things that you would need a query against that, unless you knew like PowerShell or Azure, AZ Cloud, those type of commands, like when you're connecting into Azure, they're then running. They're kind of like scripts. There's going to be times where you're not going to be able to understand exactly what you need in a more scriptable fashion, and that's where the Azure Resource Graph Explorer comes in. So in this, I'm going to show you how to kind of build just like a simple query, and it uses what's called the custom query language. And if you go over to Microsoft's website and you just Google, or Google Azure Resource Graph query language, this will come up and it'll give you like all the documentation on what type of commands you can use, how to query certain things that you need. Could also be examples of the stuff that you need without you having to figure out exactly what you have to kind of query out. Because a lot of the commands are kind of simple as far as what you do. They can get kind of complex, but you can kind of start out simple. So first, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually build me a resource group. Well, actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me go back home here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to actually build some. Actually, I'll do it in here. So I already have a resource group, and I'm going to create a virtual network here. And the reason I'm doing virtual network is because I want to actually be able to query my virtual network, but then also query any subnets that are inside of there. So I'm going to create that here and then put it in this resource group. I'm just going to call it test Vnet. Then it's going to go in the East region, and we're going to go ahead and create that. And once that gets deployed, should be fairly quick here, I'm going to go in and add a subnet in there. Now, I could have done it inside the creation process there, but I'm just going to go ahead and add. You might already have the default one. Okay, yeah, so that's fine. We'll keep what's default because we don't really care what's inside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the resource graph queries, or actually resource graph explorer. And inside of here, so you can kind of start to type what you want, but let's kind of pull up an example. So let's say we want to, look for like say IP. So this filter section kind of shows you queries that are already like example queries. So you can kind of build off of these, which is kind of great. So I clicked on this list of public IP addresses. Well, I don't have any public IP addresses, but I just kind of want to show you the formatting of what's going on here. So everything kind of starts with this resources command here, or command, I guess you could say here. And then you have your pipe commands, which kind of just, deter that a new line is, so if you're going on a new line, you want to make sure you have this so it knows to pass whatever you're doing above it into the next. It's kind of like grep, you kind of, if you're familiar with Linux, whatever is on the left side gets piped into the right command, right side of the command. So here we got where type contains public IP addresses and is not empty, and then properties.ip address. But I don't have any of this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the left side here. And this side's great because you can basically just look for what you actually use and just click on it. Like so, I'm going to actually take all this out and keep the resources on. And now it's where type equals Microsoft.network.virtualnetworks. And I'm going to hit run query. And I can actually take all this out up here because say I'm going to save this query going forward here once I get done with it. So as you can see, it pulled up my test Vnet, and it gave me the type, the tenant ID, the location, resource group, subscription. Let's see, we got some properties, and we can also download this as a CSV. But if I go all the way to the right hand side where there's a see details, and I actually like this because then we can kind of actually start to drill down into what we want to kind of get into, or kind of parse out. Because the only thing I want to get is the subnet, the name and the subnets. So as I can see, there is a subnets properties. So okay, so there's a properties here, and what I'm going to do is, if you only want to get certain columns, you can go project, and then I'm going to go, let's say we go, what's the name on it? Okay, let's go name. So if you go project name and I hit run query, I got a typo there. Run query. Okay, so, oh, I forgot the pipe command. So project name. And what's this saying? Parse failure. Okay, so test Vnet. So now as you can see, we only got the name, but you know what? I also want to get the subnet. So let's go properties dot subnets, and let's run that query. And as you can see here, I got the properties dot subnets. So now I got this, and then from there, you can kind of query down or gather more information. But as you can see, we're not able to see like some of the other stuff that we kind of maybe might have missed out on. So if you're not sure, you want to kind of go back and see. Let's take this out. Okay, there we go. So we take that out, and you can hit run query again. And let's say we want the resource group and location. Okay, so we're going to go properties.subnets. I'm going to go properties. Well, actually, we don't even need that because it's not a part of the properties. It would only be a part of the properties if inside of here, or if you had to like kind of like step down into one of these, maybe there's multiples of a specific like ID or managed by, stuff like that. So since this is like on the top level, we can just go location, then resource group. And it is case sensitive too. What else can we grab? Let's grab type. Okay, let's run that query. So okay, as you can see, so now we got test Vnet, properties.subnet, the location, resource group, and type. So that's great there. So now, and these are some other ways. So you got stuff for like compute, containers, databases. The list goes on and on. So the more you kind of need, you can kind of build off of these queries. You can actually even join queries against other queries to pull data, reference data across different queries that you might need to reference. Like say, for instance, you have some type of network security group that has a particular IP address in it, but then you also want to reference that against some type of VM that references that public IP and say, hey, give me all network security groups that has this particular IP address in it with this, VM name, stuff like that. So you can kind of get complex the more complex you want. But then once you're done, you can download it as a CSV. And if I open it up here, it's going to show basically in a comma separated value format, all of my stuff here and everything that's inside of those values. So that's a great way to kind of audit things in your network, in the cloud, without having to do any complex scripting and things like that. And then you can actually even save this. So I'm going to save this as find vnets. I don't need it's going to go shared. And I'm going to put it in resource group. And we can keep it there. So it's going to publish it to a resource graph queries resource group. So it's going to create that since it's not there. And then once that's done, if we go back home here, and it might take a second to show up. And it might be, let's see, it could still be building that there. Let's do a refresh here just to show you what that does once it's finished. So it says, let's do it again. Okay, there we go. So now resource graph query. So now all the queries that you save can be saved in here. And then if you go back to it, you'll see the command that's saved in there. So that's just a great way to kind of save your queries so you don't have to remember them each time. So I would recommend actually using current queries so that you can then build off of those without having to reinvent the wheel. So if you see something down here that you kind of feel would be useful in these lists of current queries, I would start using some of those. And then, you have the language reference, which also gives you some information on how to do more specific stuff for what you're looking for. So again, that's just a simple video on how to get more acclimated with managing, monitoring your Azure environment so that you can then be more proactive in finding things such as like security vulnerabilities or ways to mitigate potential problems before they arise by querying those unknowns across your network that you might miss out on a day-to-day basis. Again, if you have any questions in regards to queries, drop me a comment down below. I'll be sure to get back with you. I enjoy trying to, figure out any type of ways I can help as far as querying or any type of Azure-related questions. Again, check out my blog, letmetechyou.com. Again, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next time.